6 months after the Kepler incident, the galaxy was completely different. The Vorthak Empire had vanished without a trace, their worlds empty, their fleets relocated to distant space where they could no longer threaten peaceful civilizations. But this was only the beginning of the changes that swept across known space. Ambassador Sioyan stood in the newly built Terran embassy on the Galactic Council homeworld, watching delegates from hundreds of species file into the Great Assembly Hall. For the first time in 3 centuries, humanity would speak to the entire galaxy, and every civilization wanted to hear what they had to say. "Are you nervous?" asked her aide, a young diplomat named Jiangsu, who had been chosen for his skill at communicating with alien species. Terrified, Sioyan admitted. "The last time we spoke to the galaxy, we were still learning what it meant to be human. Now we have become something completely different." The change in humanity during their 300 years of isolation had been remarkable. They had not just improved their technology, they had evolved as a species. They had learned to think in ways that went beyond individual minds, to see dimensions that other species could not imagine, to control the basic forces of reality itself. But with great power came great responsibility. The humans had spent decades debating whether they should reveal themselves to the galaxy again. The Vorthak crisis had forced their hand. But now they faced a choice that would determine the future of every thinking species in known space. The assembly hall fell completely silent as Sioyan walked to the speaking platform. Representatives from thousands of worlds watched her with mixtures of awe, fear, and hope. She could feel the weight of their expectations, their desperate need for guidance in a universe that had suddenly become much larger and stranger than they had ever imagined. "Fellow beings," she began, her voice carrying clearly to every corner of the vast hall. 3 centuries ago, humanity withdrew from galactic affairs because we recognized a dangerous truth. We were becoming something that other species might fear, and fear leads to conflict. We chose isolation to protect not ourselves, but all of you. A wave of whispers ran through the assembly. The Altarian delegate leaned forward, his crystal body reflecting the chamber's lights. "What have you become?" he asked in his musical voice. Sioyan smiled, and for a moment, every being in the hall felt a warmth that crossed all species boundaries. "We have become what every species has the potential to become, given enough time and the right circumstances. We have learned to think as one while remaining individuals. We have mastered technologies that seem like magic. We have gained the ability to shape reality according to our will." The Centaurian delegate raised one of her tentacles. "And what do you want from us?" "Nothing," Sioyan replied. "But we offer you everything. The knowledge we have gained, the technologies. We have developed the wisdom we have learned. We offer to share it all freely with any species that wants to grow beyond its current limits." The hall erupted in excited chatter. The implications were staggering. Humanity was offering to help every species in the galaxy evolve, to share the secrets that had transformed them from simple creatures into beings of almost unlimited power. But there was a condition, and Sioyan's expression grew serious as she continued. "However, this gift comes with a responsibility. The power we offer can be used to create or destroy, to help or harm, to heal or hurt. We will not share our knowledge with any species that wants to use it for conquest or oppression." The Vorthak delegate, one of the few survivors of their empire's relocation, stood slowly. "And who decides which species deserves this gift?" "You, not us alone," Sioyan replied. "Every species will judge itself. We will watch. We will guide. We will offer advice, but the choice to grow or stay the same belongs to each civilization individually." As the assembly dissolved into heated debate, Sioyan stepped down from the platform and walked to the embassy's observation deck. The view showed the galactic center where billions of stars danced in the cosmic darkness. Each one might have worlds with their own civilizations, their own dreams, their own potential for greatness. Jiangsu joined her at the window. "Do you think they will accept our offer?" "Some will," Sioyan replied. "Others will be too afraid of change. And a few will try to take what we offer and use it for selfish purposes. What happens to those who choose wrongly?" Sioyan's reflection in the window showed a slight smile. "They will learn the same lesson the Vorthak learned. The universe is vast, but there is nowhere to hide from the results of your choices. We sleep lightly now, and we have very long memories. Outside the embassy, the city lights twinkled like earthbound stars, and somewhere in the darkness, the future of the galaxy was being decided one choice at a time. The humans had awakened, and with them the potential for every species to grow beyond its limitations and become something greater than it had ever dared to dream. Captain Hyun, now promoted to admiral after his brave decision to wake the humans, stood on his new flagship bridge looking out at the stars. The galaxy felt different now, safer but also more complex. There were new responsibilities, new challenges, new possibilities. Sir, his communications officer reported, "We are receiving requests from 47 different species asking for human guidance on everything from medicine to engineering to philosophy." Hyun smiled. "Good, let them ask. Questions are the beginning of wisdom. And wisdom is what we all need if we are going to build a better galaxy together." In the depths of space, human ships continued their silent patrol, watching over worlds that had never known such protection. The age of humanity's isolation was over. The age of galactic transformation had begun, and every species would have the chance to decide its own destiny. The sleeping giants had awakened not as conquerors, but as teachers, not as destroyers, but as protectors. The galaxy would never be the same, and that was exactly what it needed to become, something better than it had ever been before. The Vorthak fleet dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Kepler system, expecting to find a terrified population fleeing in panic. Instead, they found something that made no sense at all. A single human vessel waited for them in the empty void. Between the stars, Admiral Korath studied the alien ship with growing confusion. It was tiny compared to his flagship, barely bigger than a Vorthak fighter, yet it showed no signs of fear or retreat. It just hung there in space like it was waiting for something. "Is this some kind of joke?" he snarled. "One pathetic little ship against our entire fleet of 800 vessels." "Sir," his tactical officer reported nervously, "we are getting strange energy readings from the human ship. Our sensors cannot get a clear lock on it. The readings keep changing, like the ship is not entirely real." Korath narrowed his eyes. He had heard old stories about humans, ancient legends from before his species had learned to travel between stars. But legends were just stories, and he commanded the most powerful fleet in the galaxy. "Open a channel to the human ship," he ordered. "Let me hear what these cowards have to say." The response came immediately, broadcast on all frequencies at once. "Vorthak fleet. This is Captain Minsu of the Terran Navy. You are guilty of crimes against innocent life forms. Surrender now or face the consequences." Korath burst into laughter that echoed throughout his command center. "One tiny ship demands that 800 warships surrender. Human, your people have been hiding in the dark too long. You have forgotten what real military power looks like." "We have forgotten nothing," came the calm reply. "We have been learning." The human ship vanished, not destroyed, not retreating, but simply ceasing to exist on every sensor screen simultaneously. Korath found his fleet alone in the void, scanning frantically for any sign of their opponent. "Where did it go?" Korath demanded, his voice rising. "Sir, we are detecting massive energy buildups throughout the system." The tactical officer reported, panic creeping into his voice. "The readings are coming from everywhere at once." That was when Admiral Korath realized his terrible mistake. The humans had not sent one ship to face his fleet. They had sent one ship to deliver a message. The real human force had been waiting in dimensions his people could not see, watching, studying, preparing for this exact moment. Space itself began to tear open around the Vorthak fleet. Not the smooth openings of hyperspace travel, but violent wounds in the fabric of reality. Through these tears came the true human fleet, vessels that existed in multiple dimensions simultaneously, ships that could phase in and out of normal space at will. But the most frightening thing was not the impossible technology. It was the precision. Every human weapon found its target with mathematical perfection. Vorthak shields that had protected them for centuries simply stopped working. Armor that had never been penetrated became transparent to human weapons. The human ships moved like they were dancing, performing a choreographed routine that had been practiced for years. Every shot, every maneuver, Every tactical decision was executed with flawless timing. Nothing was wasted. Nothing was random. Impossible, Korath whispered as his flagship systems began failing one by one. How can they know exactly where our weak points are? Captain Minsu's voice, still broadcasting calmly to the entire fleet, answered his question. We have been watching you for 3 centuries. We know every flaw, every weakness, every vulnerability in your ships and your tactics. We know how you think, how you react, how you make decisions. We know you better than you know yourselves. The Vorthak tried to fight back, but their weapons could not hit targets that existed in multiple dimensions. Their tactics were useless against enemies who had already predicted every move they would make. Their superior numbers meant nothing when the humans could appear anywhere, at any time. Admiral Korath watched in horror as his mighty fleet was systematically dismantled ship by ship. The humans were not destroying the vessels. They were carefully disabling them, removing their weapons, their engines, their ability to cause harm. Each Vorthak ship was left intact but completely powerless. This is not how war is supposed to work. He screamed at his officers. We are the strongest. We have the biggest guns. We have conquered 1,000 worlds. But the humans had evolved beyond such primitive thinking. They did not measure strength by the size of guns or the thickness of armor. They had learned to fight with mathematics and precision, turning war into a science. The entire battle lasted exactly 7 minutes and 12 seconds. When it was over, the Vorthak fleet hung motionless in space, 800 ships reduced to floating metal shells. The humans had won without killing a single enemy soldier. Then something even more impossible happened. The human ships began to glow, with a light that seemed to come from inside the metal itself. Space around the disabled Vorthak fleet started to bend and twist, forming a tunnel that led to somewhere else. You are being relocated. Captain Minsu announced to the helpless Vorthak. You will be taken to a place where you can learn the difference between strength and wisdom. Your ships will be repaired and your people will be fed. You will not be harmed, but you will not be allowed to harm others. Where are you taking us? Korath demanded, to a galaxy far from here where there are no other intelligent species. You will have time to think about your choices and decide what kind of people you want to be. If you choose to change to become peaceful, you will be welcome to return. If you choose to remain as you are, you will stay where you are. The tunnel of twisted space began to pull the Vorthak ships forward. They disappeared one by one until the entire fleet was gone, transported across impossible distances to a place where they could no longer threaten innocent lives. On Kepler 7 below, Somin watched in amazement as the human ships prepared to leave. The night sky had returned to normal, the stars back in their proper places as if nothing had happened. Her brother Taehyung stood beside her, staring up at the departing vessels. That was not a battle, he said quietly. That was something else entirely. Somin nodded. The evacuation ships were returning to the surface, their passengers climbing out to stare at the sky in wonder. The humans had not just saved them, they had solved the entire problem permanently and without bloodshed. The Vorthak Empire was gone but not destroyed. Simply moved to where they could no longer hurt anyone. The humans had demonstrated a level of power and wisdom that seemed almost divine. As the last human ship disappeared into the depths of space, Somin whispered a prayer of gratitude to beings who had chosen to use their godlike abilities, not for conquest, but for protection. The sleeping giants had awakened and they had chosen to be guardians rather than destroyers. Captain Hyan's ship moved deeper into human space and everything started to go wrong. The navigation computer began showing numbers that made no sense. The gravity detector said they were moving up and down at the same time. The temperature readings jumped from freezing cold to burning hot every few seconds. Daeho stared at his science station with wide eyes. Captain, this is impossible. Our instruments are detecting things that cannot exist according to everything we know about space. What kind of things? Hyan asked as he watched the stars outside flicker like broken lights. The computer says we are in 17 different locations at once. Daeho said, his voice getting higher. It also says we are moving backward through time and that gravity is flowing upward instead of down. Nara looked up from her communications panel. Captain, I am picking up energy readings from all around us, but they are not coming from ships or stations. They are coming from empty space. Itself, Heon felt a chill run down his back. The humans had been very busy during their 300 years of silence. They had not just improved their technology, they had learned how to change the basic rules of how space worked. This was beyond anything the galaxy had ever seen. Sir Kyung-soo called out from the weapons station. Something very big just passed in front of us. It blocked out an entire star cluster for 10 seconds. Through the main window, they could see distant stars that were definitely not behaving normally. Some blinked in perfect patterns like they were sending messages. Some moved in slow circles around each other. Some appeared and disappeared, as if someone was turning them on and off. The space around them felt alive in a way that made everyone uncomfortable. It was like being inside the belly of some giant creature that was breathing very slowly. Everything pulsed and shifted in rhythms that seemed almost like a heartbeat. "Captain." Nara said, her hands shaking as she worked the controls. "We are receiving a transmission, but it is not coming through our radio. It is somehow being put directly into our minds." Jan felt it too, a presence touching the edges of his thoughts. It was not painful, but it was completely alien-like, having someone else looking through his eyes. The voice that came was speaking perfect galactic standard, but underneath it was something that made his primitive brain want to run and hide. "Unknown vessel, you are approaching Terran space state." "Your business." Jan straightened up and tried to sound calm, even though his heart was beating so fast he thought it might explode. "This is Captain Hyon of the Galactic Council vessel Harmony. We come seeking aid against the Vorthak Empire. They are destroying innocent worlds, and we have no other choice." The silence that followed lasted exactly 97 seconds. Hyon counted them. The crew stood frozen, waiting for an answer that might decide the fate of billions of people. When the voice returned, it seemed to come from everywhere at once, making the metal walls of the ship vibrate. "The Vorthak. We remember them. They were warned, like all others, to maintain peace while we slept. Show us what they have done." Hyon nodded to Nara, who began transmitting everything they had collected about Vorthak crimes. Battle recordings of ships being destroyed, testimonies from survivors who had watched their families die, records of entire planets being wiped clean of life, computer projections showing how the Vorthak Empire would continue growing until it consumed everything. The data transmission took 3 hours to complete, but the human response came almost immediately, as if they had processed all the information in seconds. "We understand your request. Is acknowledged. Withdraw to a safe distance of 50 light years and await further instructions. Do not attempt to observe or interfere with what comes next. How long should we wait?" Hyon asked. "You will know when it is finished. The Vorthak Empire will exist for exactly 72 more hours." The transmission ended, and suddenly human space was no longer silent. Energy readings exploded beyond what their instruments could measure. Space itself began to ripple and fold like water with stones being thrown into it. Massive shapes moved in the darkness between dimensions that should not exist. Sir Daiho whispered, his face pale with terror. "The gravity readings are off the scale. It's like someone is moving entire star systems around." Through the windows they could see impossible things happening. Stars were changing position, forming new patterns in the sky. Some were getting brighter, some were getting dimmer. Entire nebulae were shifting and reshaping themselves like clay in the hands of a cosmic sculptor. Something enormous passed very close to their ship, close enough that they could see its surface. It was not made of metal or any material they recognized. Instead, it seemed to be constructed from folded space itself. A ship that existed in multiple dimensions at the same time. The hull appeared to stretch away into directions that human eyes could not follow. Nara was crying now, not from fear, but from the overwhelming realization of what they were witnessing. The humans had not just advanced their technology during their long sleep. They had become something beyond the understanding of every other species in the galaxy. More ships appeared around them, each one stranger than the last. Some were geometric shapes that hurt to look at directly. Some seemed to be made of pure energy contained in impossible forms. Some flickered in and out of existence, as if they could not decide whether to be real or not. The human fleet was waking up, and it was nothing like anything the galaxy had ever imagined. These were not weapons of war. They were tools of gods, beings who had learned to manipulate the fundamental forces of reality itself. Captain Kyung-soo said in a voice barely above a whisper. "How many ships do you think there are?" Hyun stared out at the impossible display of power surrounding them. Ships were appearing from nowhere, emerging from folds in space that opened and closed like eyes blinking. Some came through tears in reality itself. Others seemed to grow from nothing more than concentrated starlight. "I do not think we can count them," he said finally. "I do not think numbers mean anything to beings like this." The energy readings continued to climb higher and higher until their instruments simply gave up and displayed error messages. The space around them was becoming something new, a battlefield prepared by creatures who had spent 3 centuries learning how to reshape reality according to their will. Daeho looked up from his station captain. "The energy patterns are forming into something. I think they are building a gateway, but not to anywhere in our galaxy. It's like they are opening a door to somewhere else entirely. Where else could they go?" Nara asked. Hyun thought about the human message. The Vorthak Empire will exist for exactly 72 more hours. Not destroyed, not defeated, but simply relocated. The humans were not planning to fight the Vorthak. They were planning to move them somewhere else entirely, somewhere they could think about what they had done. Hyun said quietly. Somewhere they could learn the difference between strength and wisdom. As they watched, more human ships continued to appear, each one a masterpiece of impossible engineering. The sleeping giants had awakened, and they were preparing to do something that would change the galaxy forever. The Vorthak had no idea what was coming for them. In exactly 72 hours, the most powerful empire in the galaxy would simply cease to exist, and every species would learn what it truly meant to wake the humans from their long sleep. Far away from Captain Hyun's ship, the Vorthak Empire continued its path of destruction. Admiral Korath stood in the command center of his massive warship, looking at the tactical display that showed their next target, the Kepler colonies. He was a huge creature even by Vorthak standards, with thick armor plating covering his body and claws that could tear through metal. 2 million soft, weak civilians, he growled with pleasure. Their fear will make our warriors strong for months. Any word from those pathetic council members? His aide, a smaller Vorthak with scars covering his face, shook his head. They keep sending us messages, asking us to stop, Admiral. Should we bother reading them? Korath laughed, a sound like grinding metal. Let them beg. Their weakness makes me sick. In 10 years we will rule every world in this galaxy, and they will all be our slaves. What Admiral Korath did not know was that every word he spoke was being heard by intelligences far beyond his understanding. Every communication signal from every Vorthak ship was being monitored, analyzed, and stored. The humans had spent 3 centuries perfecting the art of information gathering, and they knew everything. On the distant world of Kepler 7, a young engineer named Soman was helping coordinate the desperate evacuation efforts the Galactic Council had finally sent, warning that the Vorthak fleet was coming, but there was not enough time to save everyone. The civilian transport ships were old and slow, and there were not nearly enough of them. "How many more ships do we need?" Soman asked the evacuation coordinator, an older man whose hands shook as he worked. "At least 50 more heavy transports," he replied grimly, "and we do not have them. Maybe half our people will escape if we are very lucky." Soman looked at the display showing the approaching Vorthak fleet. In 36 hours they would arrive and begin the systematic murder of everyone who could not get away. She thought about her younger brother, Taehyung, who was helping load children onto the evacuation ships, and felt anger building inside her chest. But something strange was happening to the sensor systems. Weird readings were appearing throughout the star system, energy signatures that did not match anything in their databases. Ships seemed to be appearing and disappearing at the edge of sensor range, moving in ways that broke every rule of physics. At first, the evacuation coordinators thought their equipment was broken, but the readings kept getting stronger and stranger. Somin Taehyung called over the communication system. "Are you seeing this?" There is something happening in the outer system. The stars are moving. She looked up at the night sky and gasped. The constellation she had, known since childhood, was slowly rotating. Not the individual stars, but the entire pattern, as if someone was physically moving stellar objects around like pieces on a game board. Other star groups were doing the same thing, creating shapes that made her eyes hurt to look at. "This is impossible," she whispered. "What kind of technology can move actual stars?" Her question was answered when the first human ship appeared directly above the evacuation site. It was unlike anything in any database, a vessel that seemed to exist in several dimensions at the same time. Its hull absorbed all light, completely creating a ship-shaped hole in space itself. The ship was not large compared to the massive Vorthak warships, but it radiated a sense of power that made everyone on the ground stop what they were doing and stare upward in awe. A communication channel opened, and a human voice spoke in perfect galactic standard. "Citizens of Kepler 7, you are under Terran protection. Cease evacuation efforts and return to your homes. The Vorthak fleet will not reach this system." Soman stared at the impossible ship hovering silently above them. After 3 centuries of silence, the humans had returned to the galaxy, and they had brought with them technologies that made them seem like gods walking among mortals. But Sir Taehyung said over the comm, "What if they are wrong? What if the Vorthak do get through?" The human voice replied with calm certainty, "They will not. The Vorthak fleet will be dealt. Within exactly 35 hours and 47 minutes, please return to your homes and wait across the galaxy." Similar scenes were playing out wherever Vorthak forces threatened innocent lives. Human ships appeared without warning, not to fight, but simply to deliver a message: "You are protected. The threat will be removed. Do not be afraid." The Vorthak intercepted some of these transmissions, and Admiral Korath flew into a rage when he heard them. "Humans," he roared. "These cowards think they can frighten us with words. They have been hiding in the dark for 300 years. They have forgotten how to fight." But his tactical officers were beginning to report disturbing information. "Admiral, our long-range sensors are detecting massive energy buildups throughout human space. The readings are beyond anything we have ever seen." "So what?" Korath snarled. "They can build big power plants. We have conquered 1,000 worlds with our weapons and our strength. No amount of energy can stand against Vorthak steel." What the Admiral did not understand was that the humans were not preparing to fight in any way the Vorthak could comprehend. They were preparing to solve the problem permanently and elegantly, without unnecessary destruction or loss of life. The human fleet that was assembling was not designed for battle in the traditional sense. These ships could manipulate space and time itself. They could reach into other dimensions. They could move objects across impossible distances with perfect precision. Most importantly, they had been studying the Vorthak for 3 centuries. They knew every weakness, every flaw, every possible point of failure in Vorthak technology and psychology. They had run millions of computer simulations testing every possible response to every possible situation. The humans did not fight wars anymore. They solved problems. And they were very, very good at it as the Vorthak fleet continued toward Kepler 7, completely unaware of what was waiting for them. Human ships began moving into position. They did not travel through normal space but stepped through dimensions folding distance like paper. Admiral Korath would learn very soon that there was a vast difference between strength and power. The Vorthak had strength, but the humans had evolved far beyond such primitive concepts. They had become something that could reshape reality itself, according to their will. The countdown continued 34 hours, and counting until the Vorthak Empire would simply cease to exist. Captain Hyun stood on the bridge of his ship and looked out at the stars. He had been a space captain for 20 years, but he had never seen anything like this. The space in front of him was completely dark and quiet. No signals, no ships, no signs of life at all. This was the edge of human territory, and it made him feel cold inside. The whole galaxy knew the rule about humans. Everyone learned it in their first day of space school. 300 years ago, the humans had sent one last message to everyone. It was short and scary. They said, "We are going to sleep, do not wake us." Then they just stopped talking. No one had heard from them since. Nara, his young communications officer, turned around in her chair. "Captain, we got another emergency. Call from the outer planets. The Vorthak are attacking again. They destroyed 3 more worlds this week." Hyon felt his stomach drop. The Vorthak were the worst thing in the galaxy. They were big, scary aliens who loved to fight and kill. They had been taking over planets for 50 years now. Their empire got bigger every month and no one could stop them. They were too strong and too mean. "What did the Galactic Council say?" Hyon asked, even though he already knew. "The same thing as always. Sir, more meetings, more talking. The Altarians are getting angry. They say if we don't find a peaceful way to stop the Vorthak, they will leave the council." Hyun looked back at the dark space where the humans lived. Somewhere out there in that black emptiness was the most powerful army the galaxy had ever seen. Everyone knew the stories about what humans could do in war. 300 years ago, there had been a huge war that covered the whole galaxy. Millions of ships fighting everywhere. Then the humans showed up. The war ended in less than 1 month. The humans didn't just win, they made it look easy. They fought in ways that no one understood. They used weapons that shouldn't exist. They moved their ships like they could read minds. After they won, they just went home and told everyone to behave. Then they went quiet and stayed quiet, Sir Nara said in a very soft voice. "The Vorthak fleet is moving toward the Kepler colonies. 2 million people live there, sir. They will reach them in 3 days." Hyun closed his eyes. He thought about all those people on Kepler, the families with little children, the old people who just wanted to live in peace, the young people who had their whole lives ahead of them. In 3 days, the Vorthak would come and kill them all just because they could. He thought about his own family back home. His wife Sunhee, who worked at the medical center. His daughter Minji, who was only 8 years old and loved to draw pictures of spaceships. His son Woojin, who was 15 and wanted to be a pilot like his father. What if the Vorthak came for them next? The bridge was very quiet. Everyone knew what Captain Hyon was thinking. The only way to save those 2 million people was to wake up the humans. But the stories said, that might be worse than letting the Vorthak win. Humans didn't just fight wars, they ended them completely. "Forever, Lieutenant Kyung-soo." The weapons officer spoke up. "Sir, what if the humans don't want to help us? What if they just tell us to go away? Then 2 million people die," Hyun said quietly. "And next month it will be 2 million more. The Vorthak won't stop. They never stop. They will keep taking planets until they own everything. But sir, what if the humans are angry that we woke them up? What if they decide we are the problem?" Hyun had thought about this too. The story said humans were different from other species when they got angry. They didn't just fight back. They made sure the problem never happened again. Some people said that was good. Some people said it was terrifying. Daeho, the science officer, looked up from his computer. "Captain, I have been studying the old records about humans. The last time they fought a war, they didn't just beat their enemies. They moved them. They took entire planets and put them somewhere else in the galaxy, like they were just moving toys around. How is that even possible?" Nara asked. "I don't know." Daeho said. "Nobody knows. The humans had technology that we still don't understand. They could do things that seem impossible." Hyun walked over to the big window and stared out at the human territory. He could see some stars twinkling in the distance, but something was wrong about them. They flickered in patterns that looked too regular, like someone was making them blink on purpose. Sir Kyung-soo said, his voice shaking a little. "Are we really going to do this? Are we going to wake them up?" Hyun thought about all the species in the galaxy, the peaceful Altarians who had never hurt anyone, the hardworking Centaurians who just wanted to build things, the young Keplerians who were about to die if no one helped them. All of them were counting on the Galactic Council to protect them, but the Council was just a group of people who liked to talk. They had no real weapons, no real power. The only thing they were good at was having meetings and making speeches. The Vorthak laughed at their speeches and kept killing people. "Set course for the human boundary," Hyun said finally, "and may the universe help us all." The crew started working at their stations, getting the ship ready to enter human space. No one spoke much, everyone was scared. They were about to break the most important rule in the galaxy. They were about to wake up the humans as their ship moved forward. The sensors started acting strange. The navigation computer showed readings that made no sense. Energy signatures appeared and disappeared. Temperature readings went up and down for no reason. The ship computer started making sounds they had never heard before. Cernara said, her hands shaking. We are getting close to the boundary. The sensors are going crazy. Hyan nodded. He had expected this. The humans had been busy during their 300 years of silence. They had built things that normal science could not explain. They had changed the space around their territory to make it different from everywhere else. Through the window, Hyan could see something moving in the darkness. Something huge was passing between their ship and the distant stars. It blocked out whole groups of stars for a few seconds, then moved on. He could not see what it was, but it was bigger than any ship ever built. Captain Deho said, his voice very quiet. We are detecting gravity readings that should not exist. It's like the humans have learned how to change the rules of space itself. How many of them do you think are out there? Kyung-soo asked. I don't know. Hyan said. But I think we are about to find out. The ship kept moving forward into the dark space where the humans lived. Behind them was the galaxy they knew, full of different species trying to get along and mostly failing. Ahead of them was the unknown. The humans had gone to sleep as one thing, and they were probably going to wake up as something completely different. Hyun thought about the message they were going to send. It would be simple. We need help. The Vorthak are killing innocent people. Please help us. But he knew that once they sent that message, everything would change. The humans would wake up and the galaxy would never be the same again. Are you ready, Nara? He asked. No, sir, she said. But I will do it anyway. Send the message. Hyan said, as Nara sent their plea for help into the dark human territory. Hyan wondered if they had just saved the galaxy or doomed it. The humans were about to wake up and no one knew what they had become during their long sleep.